The BBC One debate, did man create God? The big questions, 29th May 2016. This is a heck of a debate. One of my favorite kinds. And of course, we have Francesca Stavrakopoulou here. The lady just brought in some bogus apologetics. Already, we are off to a wonderful start with deep thought. And now we're going to be getting some of the, no, God made man side. And then the question is, did God made Neanderthal in the image of God? Well, is Neanderthal human? Well, yeah. And already down a backing up or a kind of a, how do I explain this? This is not easy for me to answer. Question pertaining to God and being made in the image of God already. So subscribe, please. Become part of our family. We're going to continue this debate. Hit the bell so you're notified every time. Like the video right now, and let's continue the debate. See what happens.
Relationship with God that human life has is for me questionable, and therefore I'm agnostic on it. I'm not.
Well, it's interesting, but there's 4 or 5 species of human on the planet at the same time about 50,000 years ago.
Right, yes.
But we are the survived. Bruce,
the point of information is that they're still here. Genetically, we contain DNA from Neanderthals.
Unless you're from Africa.
That's the interesting point. Yes.
Yeah.
I'd say monotheism predates polytheism. Basically,
oh my God, the Muslim guy had to chime in with the monotheism predates polytheism. Are you kidding me? The panel on the left's probably like, my gosh.
If you took all the scriptures of all writing of the world and everything, removed it 5,000 years in the future, people would say, well, Islam and Judaism didn't believe in any God because we can't find any statues of the gods of Judaism.
I don't want to insult this guy's intelligence, but I'm going to, just a bit. That is so dumb, as if they could not use tools to realize that people believed that God was immaterial, that God was spirit, that God is not some anthropomorphized figure, though they would actually think Christians worshipped a God in statues of Jesus, etc., etc. This guy, like, I honestly do wonder, do people hear this and actually think what this guy is saying makes sense and is true? Do they honestly feel convinced by something like that? That's insane.
In Islam
You can,
and so on, right?
what's your evidence?
Well, no, not of Islam and Judaism. No, I would beg to differ. And of course, if
Not of Islam and Judaism. Okay, so specifically Islam and Judaism, you're telling me that in 5,000 years, there's no way, apart from their scriptures, there's no way to know that these humans had worshipped some form of a single deity? Like, I don't understand how they wouldn't know. Even if we didn't have their books, we wouldn't have known about monotheism. Just really odd to me. It's really odd that you would not have a perception of some immaterial deity. Think of Akhenaten. What kind of sacred text do we have, right? We might have a few inscriptions that name the god, but do we have like literature that spells out the worship of this single deity? Egyptologists have worked backwards and believe that they may have the first monotheistic worship of a single deity, at least recorded that we know of, with Akhenaten. Where is the sacred literature for that? Now, that's not 5,000 years, but like, I just feel like what an apologetic to act like, okay, before where there's no evidence that we have any writing, yeah, that's where we're going to sneak monotheism in, is back there.
if you look at all world religions, polytheistic ones,
He's a Muslim debate initiative. So he's like, I guess, all about debating.
the Mayans and the Egyptians and so on, they always have a head god, a creator god, in some cases not even represented with an image. What I would say is that in
aniconic, right? So aniconism, I think it's called, something like that, which many religions practiced at certain times in history.
Theism is a degeneration of monotheism, and I think all that the research has shown.
Oh, look, that's Tim Whitmarsh, man. That's Tim Whitmarsh in the corner. Let's see.
Some of the research down there has shown that humans have a tendency to believe in superstition and anthropomorphize the natural world, yes, but it doesn't mean the natural world doesn't exist just because humans anthropomorphize. The sun exists, even though people used to think it was a man or a woman. or that the sky was made of a woman, which was the Egyptian belief. But it doesn't mean that the sky doesn't exist and the sun doesn't exist. It means that humans have incorrectly anthropomorphized the natural world, and they've also incorrectly anthropomorphized God. But people come to the conclusion of God because God is the rational conclusion based on the problem of
Abdullah,
causality.
when you said
Causality. Here we are with the philosophy. Then you got to get to theoretical physics. Then you got to go and
that polytheism was a degeneration from monotheism.
Yeah.
I don't remember, there was a comedian once called Frankie Howard used to go, "Oh, you just did that, Tim."
I did just do that.
Tim Whitmarsh, it's him. Yeah, I love Tim Whitmarsh. His book on atheism is amazing. In the classical world, he's trying to trace how far back in the Greek world you could find atheists. Fascinating person, brilliant classicist. Let's see what he says.
And I thought when you said there's a comedian who used to, and then you pointed at me, I thought I was going to be the comedian.
You can do a turn if you like.
Yeah, no, I mean, firstly, there's absolutely no evidence that monotheism predates polytheism. And we need to talk in terms of evidence, don't we? I mean, we've got to be responsible and rational about this. We need evidence, okay? The oldest evidence that we have for religious practice is polytheistic, okay? The other thing I'd say is that we're folding an awful lot in here together. Religion is...
Because the Muslims, depending on the lack of evidence to support the idea that you can't prove monotheism wasn't back here, just like you tried to argue with the Judaism and Islam. You can't prove in 5,000 years from now they worshiped one God. There's no statues. There's no images of that one God. If all the writings about that one God, it's kind of silly. It's like erase everything about it and then tell me about it. That's the dumbest thing, in my opinion. Whereas we do have evidence that supports polytheism and forms of worship of many gods in the ancient world. Where's the evidence of a single worship of one God, period? There isn't any. And when you have that lack of evidence, you could take two routes. Well, lack of evidence doesn't prove there isn't evidence out there, and an apologist would definitely take that route. Or you could say, it's probably likely there wasn't this before. There's a likely chance that evolved later.
A modern category, I mean, it's been very well documented, lots of studies on this. Religion is a way of understanding the world that we impose on things. So all of these things that we're talking about here, say ritualized behavior by early Homo sapiens.
And other hominids.
And other hominids, civic cult in ancient Greece, modern Islam, Judeo-Christian monotheism, and so forth. These are not necessarily the same categories of experience, but the one thing that we can tell is that all of these categories are socially responsive. They reflect the makeup of the society at that time. They do things that that society wants them to do. So you don't get Islam before Muhammad. You don't get sort of proto-forms of Judaism and Christianity before these religions emerge. They are historical constructs, and they emerge in that way for particular reasons. Okay, so the civic religions of classical Greece responded to a civic structure, which was basically everyone lived in a city, so you needed a religion unifying that city. Christianity and Islam emerged in very sort of complex situations, but they gained power as part of, as somebody said earlier, as part of a kind of imperial system. So they respond very well. These centralizing religions based around a single God who rules everything. They're very good allegories of empire. They do many other things as well. I'm not saying that's all they do, but they are socially responsive. And if you want one very good piece of evidence for the idea that religion is a social construct, think again about gender, okay? The fact that almost every society that we've had so far has been male-dominated. Almost every religion is male-dominated. That is because the two are responding to each other, religion and society.
Look. Boom, mic drop. Tim Whitmarsh is totally awesome. I really love that. I know that Muslim guy did not like him saying that Islam is not found prior to Muhammad, because they will argue that Jesus was a Muslim. These other prophets were all Muslims. Muslims go back into as old as you can go, and he's an apologist debater. No doubt in my mind, he's going, you don't know what you're talking about. Tim Whitmarsh is the man. Let me tell you, that guy knows his stuff. But the way he just described the social complex there and how monotheism works really well with empire makes a lot of sense as to why Christianity did so well as the religion of Rome. It's a single deity, ultimately, that you need. And the power can be confined politically, socially, into a single entity uniting people under one umbrella. That's what was said by Karakuni, the Egyptologist who talked to me about Akhenaten. But the power about monotheism is it works so well politically in power structures. It's really, really good. Whereas with polytheism, there's a little more sporadic diversity, and it doesn't necessarily unite the same way that monotheism has such an easy way of doing.
Right, Charlie. I heard a little twinkle in your eye there. Yeah.
I don't have any problem with that. As a religious leader, as a rabbi within a congregation who's dealing with real
She got a nose piercing too, so she's got to be progressive in some way.
people who are scientists, doctors.
What about the
And that's cool. I like that. But it's like, do you really represent most of the issues that I would say, most people within the faith communities that you are saying you represent, Judaism or whatever, when you do that? I want to see more diversity. I like seeing these changes, and I like hearing the voices like this happen. It's just like, what about some of those really old school power hungry people that you find in Jerusalem, for example, that might, have some pretty negative outlooks towards people who aren't Jews? You get this in all sorts of different communities, but I just make it the point, like, cool, you're progressive and you've grown out of the nonsense. Why can't we get more people to do that?
goddesses? Where are the goddesses?
Yeah, I think we're re-putting them back in when we perceive God within our modern eyes. I don't think that there's a problem with the fact that revelation continues and that we're, as religious leaders or
The Muslim next to him is like, it stopped with Muhammad, mofo.
as people who are practicing religion within a modern world, that we can't have both, that we can't understand.
South Bucks Jewish community, liberal Judaism. Of course. Okay, makes sense.
That the way that we perceive the world is through our own construct, because we are human. And so therefore the way that we perceive God and the way that we perceive religion is limited by the fact that we're human. And so I look at my text and obviously there are female voices missing. But here I am as a woman rabbi in a progressive movement, very much a rabbi within liberal Judaism who practices her religion in a way that feels relevant and real to me. And that's because I have reconstructed my view of religion based on my own context. That doesn't mean that God doesn't exist because I happen to be limited by my own human power.
Okay, I want to stick with because I know you've Selena O'Grady, author of "And Man Created God." Where are you coming from on this one?
I'd love to say that.
Where are the goddesses?
man
I mean, the
created.
point very articulately put by Tim there, that the mere, the manifestation of religion in its womanless form shows that it's created by men. Do you buy that?
Yes, I do. I mean, but I think that the God that we create changes over time. So you get a Jewish God that's for a particular tribe who've lost their homeland, who says, I'm just going to protect you lot. And if you obey my rules, I'll give you promised land. You get the Roman gods, exactly, which is based on the client-patron relationship of Rome. So you get these huge big patrons. If you give them a lamb, with any luck, they'll cure your fertility problems or whatever. But it's a client-patron relationship on which Rome is based. You get the Christian God, and I'm surprised that love comes in so early, because in a sense, the Christian God seems to be the first real loving God. These Roman gods.
That's ridiculous.
Oh, hold on. Okay, Francesca's saying something. I got to rewind that because she knows Ishtar, Inanna. She knows some really ancient Mesopotamian stuff too.
The first real loving God.
That's ridiculous.
Oh, that's ridiculous. Francesca's like, yo, what you talking about? What you talking about?
Roman gods.
That's ridiculous.
These Roman gods do nothing but just give or not.
I think one of
The Jewish God,
they're
hang on,
finished.
but the Jewish God, I think, is for a specific people. And the thing about the Christian God is that this is what Paul does so cleverly, I think, in creating Christianity, is to open up that love and protection of a particular tribe to a whole group of people who are living in this sort of the first.
The philosophers are already doing this. Okay, I was going to buy your book, and I probably still will just to see what you say, but like, I feel like some of these scholars need to read more widely of what's been going on in the Greek and Roman world, that these philosophers already have been making sense of the world of this ultimate all-loving deity that is actually taking care of humanity, and each of us are close to it. This is why Paul quotes a pagan poet. He says, in him we move, we breathe, we have our being in Acts 17. That's not Jewish, that's pagan. And that he's not far from each one of us, right? That's a pagan quote. He quotes two different authors in Acts 17 at this hill in Athens, just pointing out that he's lifting from these prior pagan poets, obviously rhetorically against the Epicureans and the Stoics that are there. But like, it is not like this was all just invented at one point by Paul. Like, this already is floating in the air. Philo of Alexandria before Paul was already giving this notion of a universality of God and love and morality and all these things. Like, that's just silly.
First phase of globalization in the Roman Empire, where they've lost all sense of community. They're in these huge big cities. And he gives them a sense of, look, you know, I love you all, you love each other all, in a way that the Jewish God just goes for this particular group.
Can you find, love. Love. All you need is love. Can you get it in previous gods and goddesses?
Of course you do. And I think it's incredibly arrogant of any kind of Christian to present their own religion as somehow, or any idea of Christianity as being somehow more elevated, something innovative.
No, I'm not saying it's more elevated. It just does it.
Christian, no, it doesn't do it better.
But Francesca, what are you, a biblical scholar or something?
Exactly.
Oh, you are? Right, okay.
Yeah.
Look, I'm not saying it does it better. I'm simply saying
it's completely offensive.
It's
completely offensive. And I'm amazed that it's such an outdated idea. Of course, the Jewish God, the God of the Hebrew Bible, is a loving God.
Listen,
it's not about particularity. And to suggest that Christianity somehow opens up this massive deity to the rest of the world is incredibly outdated and offensive.
I'm sorry.
You're all speaking at once.
Yeah, by the way, Judaism was already, like, Yahwism, as you point out, like, Francesca's right. There are many scholars who've been pointing out. Jonathan Adler's been doing some work on this. We've got Gad Barnea, who's been doing some work on Yahwism and its virality well beyond just the Jews. That Yahwism was a universal viral idea in the Greco-Roman world. So there was so many people into the God of the people of the book. But Yahwism was like becoming beyond just the Jewish religion. And it gives, if you will, a foundation to something that spawns up like Christianity.
But I want to hear. Wait. I want to hear. We're having a civilized Sunday morning discussion about God. All right. Listen. What about goddesses? Then?
Can I please just answer this?
Okay.
That I'm just saying this is how these gods arrive. They arrive to fulfill particular purposes. The Jewish God arrived to fulfill a particular purpose for a particular set of people.
But can we just say one thing, which is that it is a distortion to say that either the God of the Old Testament or the God of the New Testament is probably called loving.
Yeah.
I can't think of a more dull and spiteful character than the Jehovah of the Old Testament.
I can't think of a more spiteful character than the Jehovah of the Old Testament.
Anyone who looks at the history of, for instance, the Catholic Church would never have.
Okay, everybody. I want to talk about.
All right, let's get back to Francesca.
About goddesses. I want to talk about goddesses. It's not a sentence I've said a lot in my life, but I do right now. I know you say it all the time. Where are the goddesses? Why did the goddesses or goddess get squeezed out of the religious equation?
Partly because the goddesses were massively powerful and they played a really important role with the male deities, but also because gender in the ancient world, including the ancient world from which the Hebrew Bible emerged, the world from which the New Testament text emerged, their notion of gender was very, very different from ours. The deities had very fluid sense of gender. There wasn't just one male and one female gender. It was a very, very
transgender
fluid.
deity.
Exactly. Yeah. And they were so different deities could perform different roles. The goddesses become erased, sometimes.
And by the way, this is an interesting statement because you would have male deities impregnate themselves or get pregnant. So there is this fluidity in the myth that makes, strangely, the men have children, get impregnated. This happens in Egypt, in Mesopotamia. So there's just like, it's an interesting way of looking at the ancient world. I'm like,
literally in terms of their statues and their cult objects, but sometimes literary as well. And from the text, they're erased because of this prioritization of a particular deity at a particular political point in a particular time in history, as Tim was saying. It's all about politics. That's why you get hierarchies. When a human society becomes more hierarchical, even a very small group, is basically earning the money. You've got one temple, one deity, all the money from that is going to come to that temple. Whoever's in charge of the temple is going to have more political power. It's a centralization. And that's where the idea of the prioritization of one deity comes from. So the goddesses never disappear. People continue to worship the goddesses. I mean, in one way, she's reinvented, if you like, in the figure of Mary, the Queen of Heaven within Christianity.
Yeah.
Look. Oh, it's erupting already. Well, that's part 2. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to wrap that video up there because this is going to get in the weeds. I love this kind of stuff. Mary, but you could even go to Sophia, wisdom. She becomes a personification of wisdom. Like, there's just so much. So hit subscribe, hit the bell, like this video, share this bad boy out there, become part of our family. Please do. Until next time, see you then.